Hello there, it's Austin. So I've had literally one person ask me to do a stout, and I thought, let's give it a shot. We'll start out by gathering some water through a reverse osmosis system. I'm gathering mine ahead of time here because it takes a couple hours to get our 4.8 gallons through each of the filters. Once our water is gathered and preheated to a mash temperature of 149 degrees, we'll gather and grind our base malt, which is a pale two-row. The specialty fermentables being a mixture of dark Munich, rye, chocolate, black patent, and caramel. I really like the flaked rye edition here. I think it can definitely add some spicy and a little bit of smoky flavors to the final product. After adding the grains to the mash, it's time to drop in our water additions, which are especially important considering we're using RO water. Then it's time to give the grains a little bit of space to marinate for 60 minutes, interrupting it a few times for some occasional stirring, of course. At the conclusion of our single mash, it's time to pull the grains out and let them drain back into the kettle. While gravity is doing most of the hard work, I will pull some of the wort out and rinse it back through the grains. This rinsing process, or batch sparge, helps us reclaim any of the sugars that might still be hanging around in the grain basket. At this point, it's time to turn the heat up and start the boil process. Make sure to drop in some foam inhibitor if you have any, as the hot break is really cool and viscous looking in a stout, but it looks much worse when it's all over your floor. With the boil going, it's time to add in some hops. I'm using a ½ ounce of Magnum and 3/4 of an ounce of Cascade for this batch. With 5 minutes left in the boil, I'll add in some lactose. This is a good way to bump the ABV up, as well as contribute to a creamier mouthfeel in the final product. With the boil done, it's time to undo all the work we did heating the wort by chilling it off as quickly as possible. Once the wort's at a nice 70 degrees Fahrenheit or so, it's time to transfer into the carboy. Since my stainless fermenter was hard at work lagering another batch, I'll be using a plastic PET carboy. With everything loaded up in the fermenter and ready to go, I'll take a quick gravity reading before pitching the yeast. I'll be using Imperial's A10 Darkness strain here, which, as well as being an awesome name for a metal band, I think does an excellent job of pushing forward those roasty and chocolatey notes that you want out of a stout. With a heating pad and temperature probe added to make sure we stay at our 68 degrees, we'll get out of the way and let the yeast work for a couple days. Once we can see that yeast activity has died down a little bit, we'll add a couple ounces of cacao nibs and a couple ounces of coffee liqueur to a stainless steel strainer that we will eventually drop in the carboy. You can always throw them straight into the fermenter, but I like a little bit of added protection to make sure I don't clog up my port when I try to pull the beer back out. A few days after our cacao nibs and coffee liqueur addition, it's time to transfer to the keg. Final gravity on this batch ended up at about 1.021, leaving us at a nice, not too boozy 5.4%. Once all the finished beer is transferred over to the keg, we'll drop it down into the kegerator and connect our CO2 tank. We'll carbonate it at serving pressure for a week or two, and then it's finally time to enjoy. Go find some snow or put a heavy coat on. Impress your friends with how dark it is. Whatever the standard stuff people do with stouts, I guess. I usually don't brew a ton of stouts. Especially with 5-gallon batches, they tend to stick around for a while, since I'm not drinking them a whole lot. Kind of the long-term investment of home brewing, like a Roth IPA. But with the 2.5-gallon batch, I'm glad that I gave this one a try. I'm getting really nice dark chocolate aroma and flavor out of it. Not too much coffee. I might use a little bit more of the coffee liqueur next time, or potentially add some ground coffee in to kind of strengthen that a little bit. The lactose adds a nice creamy mouthfeel to it. It's pretty fun because you can kind of taste each of the individual different ingredients that you put in. Nothing out of style level in terms of residual sweetness, but a decent amount. So if you're thinking about brewing something to warm yourself up, or you have a mug that you need to fill up with something dark and fun, give it a shot. Cheers!